Have you ever wondered what waits for us when our final heartbeat fades? Not money, not titles, not the trips we took or the homes we built. No, it's something bigger, a question that makes our hearts pause, even if just for a moment. Where will I go? The people I love? The ones who've left me behind? Where are they now? Are they walking on streets paved with gold, bathed in the radiant light of heaven, or have they merged into absolute stillness, into nirvana where all suffering dissolves, like a candle flame fading when there's no more fuel to burn? Today, we're going to embark on a journey together, not to find the ultimate answer, no, but to listen, to feel, and to ask ourselves, what's truly sacred when we stand at the threshold of eternity? Picture a late afternoon. The sun sets in a blaze of red across a Missouri field. A woman, her hair streaked with silver, sits on an old wooden bench on her front porch. She's holding a framed photo, the smile of her late husband, his eyes still as bright as the day they first met. She whispers, as if he could hear her, "Where are you? John, are you at peace?" That question, it's not just hers, it's ours, all of us. When death draws near, maybe through the loss of someone dear, or in those moments when we face our own fragility, we look up at the sky, we search, not just to know what happens after death, but to understand this life, everything we're doing. What does it mean? Here in America, in our culture, two powerful images often come to mind when we think about death. Heaven, a place the Bible describes as a kingdom of light, a place where we reunite with those we love, embraced by the unconditional love of God, a place with no more tears, no more pain. And then there's nirvana, not a place, but a state, a complete liberation from the cycle of rebirth, from desires, from the very idea of me, a stillness that Buddhism describes as the end of all suffering. Two paths, two ways of seeing eternity. One is the eternal presence of the soul, the other is the dissolution of the self, merging into the whole. Have you ever wondered which path is meant for you? Pause for a moment, take a deep breath, feel the air filling your chest. Right now, you're alive. But one day, this moment will become a memory, and the question of what comes next, it'll become clearer than ever. Now, let me tell you a story. Not a distant tale, but something close. Like it could be your story, my story, or anyone's. When we face loss, Margaret, a 62-year-old woman, lives in a small Missouri town. She's not a scholar, not a theologian or a Zen master. She's a wife, a mother, a friend. For 40 years, she and her husband, John, built a life together. Mornings sipping coffee by the window, fishing trips at the lake nearby, winter nights by the fireplace, sharing old stories. Then one day, John was gone. A sudden heart attack. No goodbye, just silence. And a void nothing could fill. Margaret didn't know what to do with that pain. She went to church, like she did every Sunday. She listened to the pastor talk about heaven, about how John might be there, waiting for her. Those words comforted her, but they also made her wonder, what is heaven? Is John really there, looking down and smiling at me? Then, one evening, while scrolling YouTube for some distraction, Margaret stumbled across a talk by a Buddhist monk. He spoke about nirvana, not a place, but a release from the very idea of self. He talked about letting go, about how suffering comes from clinging. Margaret sat there in her dimly lit room, the glow of the screen casting light on her face. She thought of John. If there's no me, no John, what's left? How could she imagine a place where their love wasn't defined by memories, by embraces, by smiles? But at the same time, she felt a spark of curiosity, a tiny flame kindled in the darkness. She began her journey, not to choose between heaven and nirvana, not to find the right answer, but to understand, to feel, to face her pain, and to find meaning in what remained. That journey, it's our journey too. Today, we're going to walk with Margaret. We'll look at the teachings of Christianity about the soul, about heaven, about God's eternal love. We'll listen to the wisdom of Buddhism, about no self, about rebirth, about liberation from suffering. And maybe, somewhere along the way, we'll find a piece of ourselves. Are you ready? Come with me into this story, not to chase absolute truth, but to seek something even more sacred, peace in our hearts, as we face the biggest questions of life. Let's step inside a church for a moment. Picture it: tall stained glass windows, sunlight streaming through, casting colors across wooden pews. There's a quiet hum of hymns, the faint scent of candle wax. This is where so many of us, especially as we grow older, come to find answers, or at least comfort. In Christianity, there's a promise that resonates deep in the heart, a promise spoken by Jesus himself. In the Gospel of John, chapter 14, verse 2, he said, "In my Father's house are many rooms. I am going there to prepare a place for you." Can you imagine that a place prepared just for you? A home where you're not a guest, but a beloved child, welcomed with open arms. This is heaven, not just a vague idea of clouds and harps, but a kingdom of light, a place of eternal joy, where the Bible tells us there's no more pain, no more sorrow, no more death. Revelation 21:4 paints it so vividly: He will wipe every tear from their eyes, and death shall be no more. For Christians, heaven is reunion. It's seeing your loved ones again, your parents, your spouse, maybe a child who left too soon. It's standing in the presence of God, feeling a love so pure, so complete, that every wound of this life fades away. Think about Margaret, our friend from Missouri. After losing her husband, John, she sits in church one Sunday, listening to the pastor. He speaks of heaven as a place where John might be now, waiting for her. She closes her eyes, picturing it John's warm smile, his hand reaching out. The thought brings tears, but also a flicker of hope. Heaven isn't just a destination. It's a promise that life has meaning, that love doesn't end with death, that everything we've endured, every loss, every struggle, will find its purpose in the arms of God. But here's what makes this belief so powerful. It's not about earning heaven. It's about grace. Christians believe that through faith in Jesus, through his sacrifice, the doors of heaven are opened. It's a gift, not a paycheck. So, as we sit in this church with the light filtering through, let's hold that thought. Heaven is home, a home where love is eternal and every heart finds rest. But Christianity doesn't shy away from the harder truths. There's another side to the story, one that's not easy to talk about, but it's real, and it shapes the faith. Hell, it's a word that carries weight. For some, it conjures images of fire and torment. For others, it's something more profound and maybe even more sobering. In Christian teaching, hell isn't just a place of punishment, it's separation from God. Imagine that for a moment. God, who Christians believe is the source of all love, all goodness, all light, to be cut off from that. It's like being lost in an eternal darkness, where the soul aches for something it can no longer reach. The Bible speaks of hell in different ways. In Matthew 25:46, Jesus talks about eternal punishment for those who turn away from God's path. But it's not about God wanting to punish, it's about choice. Christians believe we're given free will. the freedom to choose love, to choose faith, or to walk away. Hell is what happens when someone says, "I don't want God," and God, in his love, respects that choice, even if it breaks his heart. Margaret wrestles with this. She's not sure how to feel about hell. Sitting in her pew, she wonders, could anyone truly be separated from God forever? What about those who never had a chance to know him? She asks her pastor, and he tells her, God's justice is perfect, but so is his mercy. We trust him to judge with love. That idea of trusting God's judgment is central. It's not about fear, though fear can be part of it. It's about understanding that life's choices matter, that our actions, our hearts, ripple into eternity. Hell isn't preached as much today as it once was. But for many Christians, especially those of us over 45, it's still a reminder life is serious, love is urgent, and the time to choose is now. Let's take a breath here. The idea of hell can feel heavy, but it's part of the bigger picture, a picture where God's love is so vast. He gives us the freedom to choose, even if that choice leads us away from him. Now, let's talk about something that ties it all together, the soul. In Christianity, the soul is eternal. It's the part of you that's more than flesh and bone. It's the spark of God within you, the part that loves, that hopes, that dreams. When your body returns to the earth, your soul lives on. This belief is what makes heaven and hell possible. It's why Christians hold so tightly to the idea that death isn't the end. As Paul writes in 2 Corinthians 5:8, to be away from the body is to be at home with the Lord. Margaret finds comfort in this. She thinks of John's soul, not gone, but alive, somewhere beyond her reach, yet still real. She imagines him whole, his laughter echoing in a place she can't yet see. But the soul's journey doesn't end at death. There's one final moment one Christians call the Last Judgment. Picture it like this: a day when time itself pauses. Every soul stands before God. Revelation 20:12 describes it, the dead, great and small, standing before the throne. And they were judged, each one of them, according to what they had done. This isn't a courtroom drama. It's not about fear or punishment alone. It's about truth. Every moment of your life, every kindness, every hurt, every choice laid bare. But Christians believe Jesus stands with you as your advocate, your Savior. His grace covers your flaws, if you've accepted it. For Margaret, the Last Judgment is both daunting and hopeful. She wonders what her life will look like in that moment. Did she love enough? Did she forgive enough? But her pastor reminds her, it's not about being perfect. It's about trusting God's love. The Last Judgment leads to eternity. Heaven for those who've chosen God. Hell for those who've turned away. But it's also a moment of restoration. Christians believe that in the end, God will make all things new. A new heaven, a new earth, where justice and love reign forever. As we leave this church, let's carry this with us. The Christian faith offers a vision of eternity, where the soul is eternal, where choices matter, and where God's love is the final word. For Margaret, for you, for me, it's a call to live with purpose, to love with urgency, and to trust that whatever comes next, we're held in hands far greater than our own. Let's leave the church for a moment and step into a quieter place. Imagine a small Buddhist temple, tucked away in a grove of trees. The air carries the faint sound of a bell, ringing soft and clear, like a whisper from the universe. Incense curls upward, and there's a stillness that feels different, not heavy, but light, as if the world itself is holding its breath. This is where Margaret finds herself one afternoon, a few weeks after John's passing. She's not sure why she's here. Maybe it's that YouTube video she watched, the one with the monk who spoke so calmly about life and death. Maybe it's just a need to keep searching, to understand what lies beyond the grief that still clings to her heart. In Buddhism, there's no talk of a soul that lives forever, like in Christianity. Instead, there's this idea that's both simple and mind-bending: no self. In Vietnamese, it's called Vô Ngã Un. It means there's no fixed, eternal you at all. Sounds strange, doesn't it? We're so used to thinking, this is me, my thoughts, my memories, my love for John. But Buddhism says, hold on, that me is more like a river, always flowing, always changing. Your thoughts, your feelings, even your body, they're not permanent. They're just moments, passing through. Margaret sits cross-legged on a cushion, listening to a monk explain this. His voice is gentle, like he's sharing a secret. When you look for the self, he says, you find nothing solid. It's like trying to grab a handful of wind. She thinks about John. If there's no self, then who was he? Who is she, sitting here, missing him? The monk smiles, as if he senses her question. Your love for him is real, he says, but it's not a thing you can hold. It's part of the flow. This idea of no self is at the heart of Buddhism. It's not about denying your existence, but about seeing it differently. You're not a single, unchanging soul. You're a stream of moments, connected to everything else, to the trees outside, to the people you love, to the stars above. Margaret feels a mix of confusion and curiosity. It's hard to let go of the idea of me, but there's something freeing in it, too. If there's no fixed self, maybe her pain isn't fixed either. Maybe it can flow, like that river, and find its way to something new. Let's pause here, take a breath. The idea of no self isn't easy. It asks us to loosen our grip on who we think we are. But for Buddhists, that's where freedom begins. Now, let's walk deeper into this temple, where the air feels cooler and the light softens. Margaret is still here, her hands resting in her lap, her mind turning over what she's heard. The monk begins to speak again, this time about something that feels both familiar and strange: reincarnation. In Buddhism, life doesn't end with death, but it's not a soul moving on to heaven or hell. Instead, it's a process called samsara, the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. Think of it like a wheel turning endlessly. When you die, the stream of your consciousness doesn't stop. It flows into a new life, a new body, shaped by something called karma. Karma, you've probably heard the word before. It's not just what goes around comes around. In Buddhism, karma is the law of cause and effect. Every action, every thought, word, or deed plants a seed. Those seeds grow, shaping your future, not just in this life, but in the next. The monk tells Margaret a story. Imagine a man who lives with anger, he says. His harsh words hurt others. Those actions create karma, like ripples in a pond. When he dies, that karma carries forward, maybe leading him to a life of struggle. But then he adds, now imagine a woman who lives with kindness, her love, her patience. They create different ripples. Her next life might be one of peace. Margaret thinks about her life with John, the mornings they laughed together, the times she forgave his stubbornness, the quiet moments when they just held hands. Did those moments plant seeds? And what about now, without him? What seeds is she planting with her grief? Her questions. Karma isn't about punishment or reward, the monk explains. It's about understanding that your choices matter. You're not a victim of fate. You're part of a vast web, where every action weaves a thread. Reincarnation, tied to karma, means life is a journey across many lives. Suffering, what Buddhists call dukkha, comes from being caught in this cycle, clinging to desires, to the idea of me. The goal isn't to win the cycle, but to step off the wheel entirely. Margaret wonders about John. Is he out there in a new life, carrying the karma of their years together, or has he found a way to step off that wheel? The thought is both comforting and unsettling. It's not the reunion she imagined in heaven, but it's a kind of continuation, a flow that doesn't end. Let's hold that image, the wheel of samsara turning through time. It's a reminder that in Buddhism, life is vast, interconnected, and shaped by our own hands. Now, let's sit with Margaret one last time in this temple. The bell rings again, its sound lingering in the air. The monk's voice softens, as if he's about to share the heart of it all. He speaks of nirvana. Nirvana isn't a place. It's not a golden city or a paradise in the sky. It's a state, a complete liberation from suffering, from desire, from the cycle of rebirth. In Vietnamese, it's Niet Ban, a word that feels like a sigh of release. The monk describes it like this: imagine a fire, burning bright. It needs fuel to keep going, wood, air, heat. Now imagine the fuel runs out. The fire doesn't die in the way we think. It simply stops burning. That's nirvana. No more fuel, no more suffering. Margaret listens, her eyes tracing the flicker of a candle on the altar. She thinks of her pain, her longing for John. That's her fuel, isn't it? The clinging, the wishing he were still here. Nirvana, the monk says, comes when you let go of that fuel, not by force, but by seeing clearly, by understanding that everything changes, that nothing is permanent, not even you. This is where Buddhism's path leads, not to a destination, but to a realization. The Buddha, who reached nirvana over 2,500 years ago, taught that suffering comes from attachment, to desires, to people, to the idea of a self. Nirvana is waking up from that dream, seeing reality as it is vast, empty of a fixed me, yet full of connection. Margaret asks, but what about love if I let go? Does that mean I stop loving John? The monk smiles. Love in nirvana isn't lost, he says. It becomes boundless. You love without clinging, without needing to possess. You love the way the sky holds the stars freely, without holding on. That image stays with her. Love without clinging. It's hard to grasp, but it feels like a door opening, just a crack. She thinks of John, not as gone, but as part of that vast sky, that boundless flow. Nirvana is the end of the cycle, the monk explains. No more rebirth, no more suffering, just peace, not a cold, empty peace, but a living stillness, like the quiet of a forest at dawn. As Margaret leaves the temple, she feels lighter, though her questions remain. Nirvana isn't heaven with its promise of reunion. It's something else, a release, a freedom she's only beginning to understand. Let's step out with her, into the fading daylight. Buddhism offers a path where the self dissolves, where karma shapes the journey, and where nirvana waits, not as a place, but as a truth. For Margaret, it's a new way to see her grief, her love, and maybe even her own existence. Let's walk with Margaret again, back to the familiar pews of her small Missouri church. It's a Sunday morning, and the air feels warm with the murmur of prayers and the soft creak of hymnals. She's been coming here since she was a girl, but today feels different. Her heart is heavier, her questions sharper since John's passing. She's searching for something, not just answers, but a way to carry her grief without it breaking her. After the service, she lingers, waiting to speak with Pastor Thomas. He's a kind man, in his late 50s, with a voice that feels like a steady hand on your shoulder. She tells him about her pain, her fear that John is gone forever. She asks, "Is he really in heaven? Does he know I'm here?" Missing him, Pastor Thomas sits with her, his eyes gentle. "Margaret," he says, "your soul is precious to God, so is John's. The Bible tells us that those who believe are never truly lost. In heaven, John is at peace, held in God's love, and one day you'll see him again." His words wrap around her like a quilt. They don't erase the ache, but they soften it, just a little. He talks about the soul, eternal, unchanging, a gift from God. "You're not alone," he says. "God sees your pain, and he's walking with you. John's soul is safe, and so is yours." Margaret nods, tears in her eyes. The idea of a soul, of John waiting for her in a place of light, feels like an anchor. It's what she's always known, what her parents taught her, what this church has sung about for years. But there's a question nagging at her, one she doesn't voice yet. What if the soul isn't what she thinks? What if there's another way to see it? As she leaves the church, the morning sun feels warm on her face. Pastor Thomas's words linger, offering comfort, but also stirring something deeper. She's grateful for the promise of heaven, for the idea that love endures through God's grace, but her heart is restless. That YouTube video, the monk's voice talking about no self, still echoes in her mind. She knows she needs to explore further. Let's pause here. Margaret's encounter with the pastor is a moment of solace, rooted in the familiar. It's a reminder of how faith can hold us, like a parent's embrace. But her journey isn't over. There's another voice waiting to challenge her, to push her to see beyond what she's always known. A few days later, Margaret drives to the Buddhist temple she visited before. The grove of trees feels quieter today, the air cooler, as if the world is listening. She's nervous, clutching her purse like it's a lifeline. The monk, Venerable Ananda, greets her with a calm smile. He's older, his robes simple, his presence steady, like a tree that's weathered many storms. They sit in a small room, a single candle flickering between them. Margaret hesitates, then speaks. "I went to church," she says. "My pastor told me John's soul is in heaven, that God is watching over us. But you said there's no self, no soul. If that's true, where is John and who am I, if I'm not me?" Venerable Ananda listens, his eyes kind but piercing, as if he sees past her words to the pain beneath. "Margaret," he says, "there is no you to lose, no John to find. What you call a soul is like a wave on the ocean. It rises, it falls, but it's never separate from the water. Your love for John is real, but it's not a thing you can hold. It's part of the flow of life." His words feel like a gust of wind, unsettling but strangely clear. He explains that in Buddhism, what we think of as self is an illusion, a story we tell ourselves. There's no fixed soul, only a stream of consciousness, shaped by karma, flowing through countless lives. "When you let go of me," he says, "you let go of suffering. You see that John is not gone. He's in the air you breathe, in the love you carry, in the world around you." Margaret's heart tightens. It's hard to imagine John as part of a flow, not a person waiting for her. She thinks of their life together, the way he'd hum off-key in the kitchen, the feel of his hand in hers. How can that be an illusion? But the monk's words stir something. If there's no me to cling to, maybe her grief doesn't have to define her. Maybe she can find peace, not by holding on, but by letting go. As she drives home, the countryside rolling past, Margaret feels caught between two worlds. The pastor's promise of a soul, of heaven, feels like home, warm, familiar, a place where John waits. The monk's teaching of no self, of a boundless flow, feels like a leap into the unknown, both daunting and liberating. She wonders, can both be true in their own way, or is one closer to the truth of who she is, of where John might be? Let's step back with her, into the quiet of this moment. Margaret stands at a crossroads, holding two visions of eternity. One offers reunion, the other release. Her journey is ours, too, a search not just for answers, but for a way to live with the questions that shape our hearts. Let's return to Margaret, sitting quietly in her Missouri home, a worn Bible open on her lap. The afternoon light spills through the window, soft and golden, like a reminder that the world still holds beauty, even in her grief. She's been thinking about her talk with Pastor Thomas, about his words of heaven as a place where John might be waiting. The idea feels like a lifeline, but it's also stirring questions. What is heaven, really? And how does she find her way there? In Christianity, heaven isn't just a destination. It's a promise, rooted in the idea of salvation. Salvation is the heart of the faith, the belief that through Jesus Christ, we're saved from sin, from separation from God. It's not something you earn with good deeds or perfect living. It's a gift, offered through grace, through faith. As Ephesians 2:8 says, "For by grace you have been saved through faith." It is the gift of God. Margaret traces her finger over those words in her Bible. She thinks about her life, the times she's been kind, the times she's fallen short. She's not perfect, and she knows it. But Pastor Thomas told her, God's love doesn't depend on your perfection. It's unconditional. He loves you as you are, and he wants you with him in heaven. That love, God's love, is what makes heaven so powerful in the Christian imagination. It's not just a place of beauty, with streets of gold or rivers of crystal, as the book of Revelation describes. It's a place where you're fully known, fully loved, without judgment. Imagine that for a moment. No shame, no fear, just the warmth of a love so vast it heals every wound you've ever carried. Margaret closes her eyes, picturing it. She sees a light, brighter than any she's known, and in that light, a presence that feels like home. She thinks of John, his soul safe in that love. The thought makes her heart ache, but it's a different ache now. Not just loss, but longing. Longing to be part of that love, to rest in it. Salvation, Pastor Thomas explained, is the door to heaven. Jesus is the key, his sacrifice the bridge between our brokenness and God's perfection. For Margaret, this feels like a hand reaching out, offering to carry her through the pain of this world to a place where joy is eternal. Let's hold that image, a love that saves, a grace that welcomes. It's the foundation of heaven, the promise that no one is too far gone, that every heart can find its way home. Now, let's sit with Margaret a little longer as she turns the pages of her Bible to another verse, one she's read 100 times since John's passing. It's from 1 Thessalonians 4:17, and so we will be with the Lord forever. Those words catch her breath every time. Forever, not just with God, but with those she loves. With John. In Christianity, heaven is a place of reunion. It's one of the most comforting promises of the faith, that death doesn't have the final word. The people we've lost, the ones whose absence leaves a hole in our hearts, aren't gone forever. In heaven, Christians believe, we'll see them again, not as shadows or memories, but as they truly are, whole and radiant in God's presence. Margaret thinks back to a story her mother used to tell about her own near-death experience years ago. "I saw a light," her mother said, "and my father was there, smiling, like he'd been waiting for me." These stories, often called near-death experiences, are common in Christian communities. They paint a picture of heaven as a place where loved ones gather, where families are made whole. For Margaret, this is what keeps her going. She imagines walking through that light, John's arms open wide, his laugh filling the air like it used to on their best days. She pictures her parents there, too, and friends she hasn't seen in years. It's not just a dream. It's a hope that anchors her, that makes the pain of now feel bearable. But reunion in heaven isn't just about seeing loved ones. It's about being with God, the source of all love. Christians believe that in heaven, you'll experience God's presence in a way that's beyond words, a joy so complete it overshadows every sorrow. Revelation 22:4 says, "They will see his face, and his name will be on their foreheads." It's intimacy, connection, a sense of belonging that nothing in this life can match. As Margaret sets her Bible down, she feels a quiet strength, the promise of heaven, of salvation, of God's love, of reunion, doesn't take her grief away, but it gives her a place to rest her heart. She thinks of John not as lost, but as waiting, held in a love that's bigger than both of them. Let's step back with her into the stillness of this moment. Heaven, in the Christian faith, is more than a place. It's a promise that love endures, that grace saves, and that no goodbye is forever. For Margaret, it's a light in the darkness guiding her forward, even as she wrestles with the monk's words about no self and nirvana. Her journey is far from over, but in this moment, heaven feels like a home she can almost touch. Let's follow Margaret back to the Buddhist temple, where the air is cool and the soft chime of a bell lingers like a gentle nudge from the universe. She's sitting on a cushion, her hands resting lightly in her lap, her heart still heavy with the weight of John's absence. But today, there's a quiet openness in her. The monk's words about no self and karma have unsettled her, yet they've also cracked open a door to something new. She's here to understand nirvana, not as a place, but as a possibility, a way to end the pain that feels like it might never leave. In Buddhism, nirvana is the ultimate freedom. It's not a golden city or a reunion with loved ones like heaven. It's the cessation of suffering, what Buddhists call dukkha. Suffering, the monk explains, comes from clinging to desires, to people, to the idea of a permanent self. Nirvana is what happens when that clinging stops. It's like a fire that's gone out, not because it was snuffed, but because there's no more fuel to burn. Venerable Ananda, the monk, speaks softly, his eyes steady. Nirvana isn't something you find, he says. It's something you realize. When you see that everything changes, your body, your thoughts, your pain, you stop holding on. And in that letting go, suffering ends. Margaret thinks about her grief. It's been her constant companion, a weight she carries every day. She imagines it as fuel feeding a fire that burns inside her. What would it feel like to let that fire go out? Not to forget John, but to love him without the ache of loss. The idea feels distant, almost impossible. But there's a pull to it, like a quiet promise. The monk tells a story of the Buddha, who reached nirvana under a tree over 2,500 years ago. He saw the truth, the monk says, that suffering comes from attachment. When he let go, he was free, not from life, but from the cycle of pain. For Margaret, this is both daunting and hopeful. Nirvana isn't a reward for a good life. It's a state of mind, a clarity that cuts through the illusions we live by. Let's pause here. Nirvana, as the end of suffering, asks us to rethink what freedom means. For Margaret, it's a glimpse of peace, a chance to carry her love for John without being consumed by it. Now, let's sit with Margaret a little longer as the candlelight flickers in the temple. The monk's voice grows quieter, almost a whisper, as he speaks of enlightenment, the heart of nirvana. Enlightenment, he explains, is waking up. It's seeing reality as it is, impermanent, interconnected, free of a fixed self. In nirvana, you don't go somewhere new. You simply stop being trapped by the stories you tell yourself. Margaret listens, her mind turning to John. She's been holding onto him so tightly, his memory, his laugh, the life they built. The monk's words challenge her. What if holding on is what keeps her pain alive? Enlightenment, he says, is like a mirror, clear and still. It reflects everything, joy, loss, love, but it doesn't cling to any of it. This is where nirvana leads to the end of birth and death. In Buddhism, life is a cycle of samsara, driven by karma, where we're born and reborn over and over. Nirvana breaks that cycle. When you reach enlightenment, there's no more fuel for rebirth, no more you to be born or to die. It's not annihilation, the monk clarifies. It's liberation, a peace so complete, it transcends the need for existence itself. Margaret struggles with this. The Christian heaven, with its promise of reunion, feels warm and personal. Nirvana feels vast, almost too big to hold. She asks, if there's no me in nirvana, what happens to my love for John? The monk smiles, his eyes soft. Love doesn't vanish, he says. It becomes boundless, like the sky. You love without needing to possess, without needing a you to love. As she leaves the temple, Margaret feels a shift. Nirvana isn't a place she can picture, like heaven's golden streets. It's a state she can only sense, a stillness, a release from the cycle of longing and loss. She thinks of John, not as waiting for her, but as part of that boundless sky, free from suffering. It's not the answer she expected, but it's a kind of hope, one that asks her to let go, to trust in something larger than herself. Let's step out with her, into the evening air. Nirvana, in Buddhism, is the end of suffering, the clarity of enlightenment, the freedom from birth and death. For Margaret, it's a new lens on her grief, a challenge to love in a way that doesn't bind her to pain. Her journey continues, holding the warmth of heaven and the vastness of nirvana, each pulling her heart in its own way. Let's sit with Margaret again, in the quiet of her Missouri home, where the morning light filters through lace curtains. She's holding a cup of coffee, staring at the steam rising, her mind caught between two worlds. On one side, there's the church, with its promise of heaven and an eternal soul. On the other, there's the temple, with its teaching of no self and nirvana. She's been turning these ideas over like stones in her hand, trying to understand what they mean for her, for John, for the life she's living now. In Christianity, the soul is the core of who you are. It's eternal, unchanging, a spark of God that lives forever. Pastor Thomas explained it to her, your soul is what makes you, you. It's what loves, what hopes, what carries your essence beyond death. The Bible speaks of this in places like Matthew 10:28, where Jesus says not to fear those who can kill the body, but cannot kill the soul. For Christians, the soul is what steps into heaven, where it's reunited with loved ones and rests in God's presence. Margaret finds this comforting. The idea of an eternal soul feels personal, like a thread that connects her to John, to her parents, to everyone she's ever loved. She imagines John's soul, whole and vibrant, waiting for her in a place of light. It's a promise that death can't break the bonds of love, that the you who laughs and cries and dreams endures forever. But it's more than just endurance. The Christian soul is saved by grace, not by works, Pastor Thomas told her. God's love is what carries your soul to heaven. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to trust. This is what makes the idea so powerful. It's not about earning eternity, but accepting a gift. Heaven becomes a home where your soul is fully known, fully loved, forever. Margaret sips her coffee, feeling the warmth of this thought. The eternal soul is like an anchor, grounding her in the hope that John is still him, that their love is still real, waiting to be renewed. But then she remembers the monk's words, and her heart stirs. What if there's no her to anchor at all? What if the soul she clings to is just a story? Let's pause here. The Christian soul offers a vision of eternity that's personal, enduring, and rooted in divine love. It's a promise that feels like home for Margaret, but it's only half the picture she's exploring. Now, let's walk with Margaret back to the Buddhist temple in her mind, where the air is still and the scent of incense lingers. She's been replaying her conversations with Venerable Ananda, especially his teaching about no self, Voing. It's a concept that feels like stepping off solid ground into open air, both unsettling and strangely freeing. She's trying to make sense of it, to see how it fits with the soul she's always believed in. In Buddhism, there's no eternal soul, no fixed you that lasts forever. Instead, there's the idea of no self. What you think of as you is a collection of fleeting moments, thoughts, feelings, sensations, constantly changing like a river's flow. Venerable Ananda put it simply, when you look for a self, you find nothing permanent. It's like trying to hold water in your hands. It slips through. This challenges everything Margaret has known. She thinks of John, his crooked smile, the way he'd hum in the kitchen. How can that be impermanent? But the monk explained that John, like her, was a stream of consciousness, shaped by karma, flowing through life after life in the cycle of samsara. In Buddhism, there's no soul to save, but a mind to awaken. Nirvana, the end of suffering, comes when you see through the illusion of self. When you stop clinging to the idea of me. Margaret feels a tug of resistance. The idea of no self feels cold compared to the warmth of an eternal soul. She wants John to be John, not a stream that flows on without him. But there's something in the monk's words that resonates. If there's no fixed self, then her grief, her pain, isn't fixed either. It can change, dissolve, like mist in the morning sun. Nirvana offers freedom, not through reunion, but through release. A love that doesn't cling, a peace that doesn't need a you to exist. As she sets her coffee down, Margaret feels caught between these truths. The eternal soul promises a forever her, loved and reunited in heaven. No self offers a boundless flow, where suffering ends because there's no one to suffer. One feels like a warm embrace, the other like a vast sky. She wonders, can she hold both in her heart, or will one call her more strongly as she searches for peace? Let's step back with her into this moment of reflection. The Christian soul and Buddhist no-self are two lenses on eternity, each offering a way to face life and death. For Margaret, they're not just ideas, they're paths to understanding who she is, where John might be, and how to live with the love and loss that shape her days. Let's join Margaret as she sits on her porch in Missouri, the evening sky stretching wide above her. She's been carrying two visions of eternity, the Christian soul in heaven and the Buddhist no-self in nirvana, and they've been tugging at her heart. Tonight, she closes her eyes and lets her imagination wander, picturing a conversation that could never happen in this world. What if a soul, resting in the light of heaven, could speak with a practitioner who has attained nirvana? What would they say? How would they understand each other? In her mind, the scene unfolds like a dream. There's a vast, quiet space, neither heaven nor nirvana, but a meeting point where light and stillness coexist. On one side stands a soul, radiant and whole, wrapped in the warmth of God's love. Let's call her Anna, a woman who lived a life of faith and now dwells in heaven. Across from her is a practitioner, serene and unbound, their presence like a clear lake reflecting the sky. Let's call them Kavi, a monk who reached nirvana through years of meditation and insight. Anna speaks first, her voice soft but full of joy. "I'm home," she says. "In heaven, I'm with God, with those I love. My soul is complete, held in a love that never fades. I see my husband, my children, and we share a joy that has no end. Don't you long for this? To be with those you care for, to feel God's embrace?" Kavi listens, their eyes calm, a faint smile touching their lips. "I understand your joy," they say, their voice steady, like a breeze across still water. "But in nirvana, there's no me to long for anything. I've let go of the self, of desire, of the need to be someone. There's no one to miss, no one to hold. Yet everything is here, boundless, free. The love you feel, I feel too. But it's not mine. It's the universe, flowing without clinging." Anna tilts her head, curious. "But how can you love without being you in heaven? My soul carries my memories, my heart. I'm still Anna, loving my family, praising God. That's what makes eternity beautiful. It's personal. It's real." Kavi nods, their presence unshaken. In nirvana, love doesn't need a name or a form. When I let go of Kavi, I found freedom. The suffering of wanting, of loss, is gone. What you call love, I call compassion, vast, without boundaries, embracing all without holding on. Margaret, imagining this, feels her heart stir. Anna's heaven is warm, familiar, a place where love feels like John's hand in hers. Kavi's nirvana is vast, almost too big to grasp, yet it promises a peace that doesn't depend on her. Let's pause here. This dialogue, born in Margaret's mind, is a bridge between two truths. Anna's soul speaks of eternity as a home. Kavi's no-self speaks of it as a release. Both are profound, but they pull in different directions, mirroring Margaret's own search for meaning. As Margaret's imagined conversation continues, the space between Anna and Kavi seems to shimmer, as if the universe itself is listening. Anna speaks again, her voice tinged with wonder. "In heaven, I'm whole," she says. "I see God's face, and every pain of my life makes sense. My family is with me, we laugh, we worship, we're together forever. Don't you miss that connection, that sense of being with those you love?" Kavi's eyes soften, but their words are clear. "In nirvana, there's no I to miss," they say. "When I saw through the illusion of self, I saw that all beings are connected. Your family, your love, they're not separate from the whole. I don't miss because I don't divide. Compassion flows to all, like a river to the sea, without needing a me to feel it." Anna presses gently, "But what about joy in heaven? My soul sings with God's glory. Every moment is alive with purpose. Without a self, how do you find meaning?" Kavi's smile deepens. Meaning in nirvana isn't found, it's realized. When the self dissolves, what's left is truth. Everything changes. Nothing is permanent, yet all is one. Joy isn't mine to hold. It's the stillness of seeing clearly. I'm free because I don't need a purpose to exist. Anna listens, her light flickering with curiosity. "I feel God's love holding me," she says. "It's personal, like a father's embrace. You speak of freedom, but doesn't it feel lonely? Being no one." Kavi shakes their head. "Not lonely. In nirvana, There's no separation. What you feel as God's love, I feel as the unity of all things. It's not a person, but it's not empty. It's everything, without a me to claim it. As the dialogue fades in Margaret's mind, she opens her eyes to the Missouri dusk. The conversation leaves her both grounded and adrift. Anna's heaven feels like a home she's always known, where John's soul could be waiting, their love eternal. Kavi's nirvana feels like a sky too vast to hold, where love exists without needing her to carry it. She wonders, are these two paths so different, or are they, in some way, reaching for the same truth, a truth bigger than her grief, her questions, her life? Let's step back with her into the quiet of this evening. This imagined dialogue between a soul in heaven and a practitioner in nirvana is Margaret's way of wrestling with eternity. It's not about choosing one over the other, but about seeing how each speaks to her heart, her love for John, and her search for peace. Her journey, like ours, is about holding these mysteries, letting them guide her forward, one step at a time. Let's walk with Margaret one last time, to a quiet cemetery just outside her Missouri town. It's early evening, the sky painted with soft pinks and golds, and a gentle breeze stirs the grass. She stands before John's grave, a simple stone etched with his name and the years of their life together. For months, this place has been a weight on her heart, a reminder of loss. But today, something feels different. There's a stillness in her, a peace she hasn't known since John passed. Margaret's journey has been long, winding through the pews of her church and the stillness of a Buddhist temple. She's carried two visions of eternity, the Christian promise of a soul in heaven, reunited with loved ones in God's love, and the Buddhist path to nirvana, a release from self and suffering. Each has challenged her, comforted her, and reshaped the way she sees her grief, her love, her life. As she traces her fingers over John's name, she thinks of Pastor Thomas's words, "Your soul is precious to God, and so is John's. He's waiting for you in heaven." She pictures John there, his smile as warm as ever, held in a love that never fades. The thought wraps around her like a blanket, grounding her in hope. But she also hears Venerable Ananda's voice. There is no you to lose. John is not gone. He's in the flow of life, free from suffering. That idea, vast and boundless, feels like a sky opening above her, offering a different kind of freedom. For the first time, Margaret doesn't feel torn between these truths. She doesn't need to choose. Heaven and nirvana, soul and no self, are not answers to be proven, but lenses to see through. They've helped her carry her love for John without letting it crush her. She whispers to the stone, "Whether you're in heaven, John, or part of the universe's quiet flow, I know you're at peace, and I'm learning to be, too." This peace isn't the absence of pain, it's a softening, a letting go of the need to know. Margaret's grief is still there, but it's lighter now, like a river that's found its way to calmer waters. She feels connected to John, not through clinging, but through a love that's bigger than her questions. Let's pause here. Margaret's peace is a testament to her journey, not a destination, but a moment of rest. She's found a way to hold both heaven and nirvana, to honor her love and her loss, without being defined by either. Now, let's sit with Margaret as she lingers by the grave, the stars beginning to peek through the twilight. Her journey has been about more than understanding what comes after death. It's been about understanding what it means to live. As she stands here, she feels a question rising, one that's not just for her, but for all of us. What are we living for? And when we face our final moment, what will matter most? Christianity, with its eternal soul and heaven, tells us life is a gift from God, a chance to love, to trust, to prepare for an eternity with Him. It asks us to live with faith, to cherish the people we're given, to seek grace in our imperfections. Buddhism, with its no self and nirvana, tells us life is a fleeting moment in a vast cycle, an opportunity to awaken, to let go of suffering, to find peace in the present. Both paths, so different, point to a shared truth: life is precious, and how we live it shapes what comes next, whether we call it heaven, nirvana, or something else entirely. Margaret thinks of her years with John, the mornings they laughed over coffee, the nights they held each other through storms, the quiet moments that felt like eternity in themselves. Those moments weren't about preparing for death. They were about being alive, fully, with love. She realizes now that the meaning of life isn't found in answers about the afterlife, but in the way we meet each day, each person, each breath. As she turns to leave the cemetery, Margaret feels a gentle invitation to ask us, the listeners, to reflect. What do you believe happens when you close your eyes for the last time? She seems to say, is it a golden city where love waits, or a boundless stillness where suffering ends? Or is the sacred thing not in the answer, but in the way you live while you're still here? Let's carry this question with us. As Margaret walks home under the stars, her journey doesn't end with certainty, but with openness, a heart that's found peace not by solving the mystery of death, but by embracing the mystery of life. She's shown us that faith, whether in a soul or no self, is about love, courage, and the quiet strength to keep asking what matters most. As we leave her, let's ask ourselves what will guide us through our own days, our own losses, our own search for meaning.